Dr. Ray, I would give them just a few more minutes as everyone is getting admitted in to the Zoom meeting right now. Got a lot of people coming on from a lot of wonderful places. I recognize a lot of wonderful people.
Yes, it's interesting. We're beginning to recognize the faces.
Yeah.
There's our friend Khalid.
Yeah, and a lot of people putting comments in the comment box. Hello to everyone from a lot of different
How are
places.
you?
So Ray, it is 9 o'clock Saudi time, 12 o'clock where you and I are at in western part of the United States. I think we're ready to get started. We're live on Facebook and we are all set up on Zoom.
Well, greetings everyone, and welcome back to the third of our four weeks that we'll be doing these live workshops. And I have some exciting news to share with you at the end, but you'll just have to wait until the end to get the exciting news. And we're so pleased to have you be part of us. As we said last week, we've had over 2,000 people register for these workshops. And we've had several people who have not only registered, but have also viewed the workshop on Facebook live. And we, of course, we have a way to keep count. And many people have actually downloaded the workshops after they've been conducted and have been able to view them. And we do thank you for your outstanding comments, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. I'm Dr. Ray Lindley. I'm the Executive Director of Array Global Educational Services. And today we are proud to present what we feel might be the key for those of us, those of you, those of all of us who are dealing with perhaps the most difficult part in education about this pandemic, and that is, how do we handle all the technological issues that we are faced with when that's not what we're used to. Yesterday, Dr. Jake and I had a conversation with our presenters for next week, and one of the presenters said that his wife, who is a teacher, was not really all that familiar with technology, and when she had to do it, she found ways that were exciting to her and new ways to handle the whole issue of educating with technology, and technology that would lead us into, hopefully, in-class instruction at some particular schedule. So welcome to everybody. I'll introduce the people who will be working with us today. Of course, you all know Dr. Jacob Frankham, who's the Associate Director, and I think most of you met last week George Makvaladze he's actually in Switzerland, and we'll be talking more with him later. And our special guest today is Dr. Drew Hinds. Drew Hinds, I've known for many years, and he's the kind of person, if you have a technology question, you ask Drew. And he's a real expert in this. He's the technology director in his school district here in the United States, and I believe will be able to hopefully offer you many clues to deal with the issue of technology. Last week, of course, we dealt with the curriculum. The week before, we dealt with the whole issue of the system. And then before that, we talked with two of our presenters who dealt with the whole concept of how we can schedule during the COVID, during any times of crisis. So we'll go ahead today. I'll first of all ask Dr. Jake to begin with the short presentation about Array Global, and we hope that you've had a chance to look at our website. Jake, you're on.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Dr. Ray. It's great to be here. It's great to see everyone again, and it's great to see all the great things that are coming out of these workshops and people thinking about ways that they can provide a quality education. And if anything, we're hoping that we're providing a lot of stimulus in thinking of ideas on ways to tackle this. I, like many of you, are overseeing some schools in the area where I live. So I'm right in the throes of it. We're very, very busy in trying to get everything set up for the year. For distance-based education, we have the opportunity to do some face-to-face education. And so we're very grateful for that. So we understand where you're coming from. And that's why we're excited to have Dr. Drew here with us and our past presenters, because they know exactly what you're going through. Just wanted to go over a few different things. If you do have a question or a comment, please add it to the chat. Don't raise your hand. We'll try and get to the chat as best we can. I know there's always a lot of great questions that can stimulate a lot of good conversation among our presenters. Also, one thing we wanted to announce is that we are doing Olympiads, academic Olympiads. They're going to be starting October 10th, and we'd love to see many of your students part of that, and we will be sending more information about that. It's a great way to interact with students across the world and to test their level of education and just build those relationships. One thing we wanted to talk about today is one of the main services that we provide at Array Global. One of our flagship service that we provide is accreditation. And we're very, very excited about the accreditation process that we do provide. So again, like we've talked about in the past, we focus on accrediting schools that are K-12, primary, middle, high school, international, national schools. And then we do some post-secondary institutions also, some career or vocational schools. And then with all the changes that are going on in the world, going on right with us right now, we will accredit distance-based institutions too. And we're excited about the process because it's not an easy process, but it's understandable. We believe that school improvement, school accreditation should not be confusing. It should be something that is direct, that we know and understand the process. So to learn more about it, you can come onto our website. The application process is here. There's a detailed handbook to take you step by step through that process. And then if you would go in here to our accreditation report, whether you're a K-12 or a distance-based or a post-secondary, download that report. We're really excited about how that report works because when you do your self-assessment, it's on one side of the report, and on the other side of the report is when we come in as a team. So we're gonna be able to have that information side by side. So it's a great way to really monitor and track your school improvement process. And again, we are coming in, like Dr. Ray says all the time, we don't come in as officials. We want to come in as family members, people that you're excited to see. And for this year, we are providing a discount of $2,000. It's instead of $2,500, it's $2,000 because we recognize a lot of schools are going through some difficult times as far as finances and keeping things going with all the new demands with this COVID situation. So we want to be cognizant of that and be able to support schools throughout that process. And then also, if you are already accredited and you want to transfer to Array Global accreditation, there is no transfer costs. You simply just fill out the application, and we will start working with you right away. So, Dr. Ray, is there anything else to add to that?
No, I think that's it. And we'll probably, as we go along, we'll have other things that we'll be discussing. But I want to, first of all, get to the real key for what we're doing today. We always have a pre-conference before we start. And when I was speaking with Dr. Drew a little bit ago, I said, Drew, this is the key to what the difficulty is. And he said, thanks a lot for all the pressure, but he can handle it. And so, Dr. Drew, it's great to have you with us, and thank you for being part of us today. And as Dr. Jake said, if you have questions, be sure to type them, and Dr. Jake will handle them. What we can handle before our hour is up, we will. If not, we will respond to you online. So Drew Hinds, Dr. Drew, welcome, and it's your show now.
Thanks, Dr. Ray. I want to just start with an illustration, and this asks you to participate in this illustration. I want you to go ahead and take your hands, and I want you to rub them together. The work that families and students are doing right now, there's a lot of friction of the way that families interact with technology, that they interact with the teacher, and when they interact with curriculum. And it creates warmth and pressure and friction. And one of the things that we can do with technology is keep it simple. Identify just a couple of tools that we use and introduce something like some hand sanitizer to the mix. And so as you add the hand sanitizer, which in this case is our illustration, is a good system, a good learning management system, good nutrition and curriculum that's provided, that's well designed and easy for the user to use, it reduces friction. So that illustration is intended to kind of start us down the path of talking about quality online instruction and how technology can help your school. I want to talk about some of the things that make online instruction a good online instruction. There's three things. The first one is responsiveness. In this new world, speed matters. Families get very frustrated very quickly if they can't log on or they can't get to what they're looking for their child. And they might have multiple kids they're serving. We as educators are serving the whole family, not a single student anymore. So there might be family in the background that could help with the student. That helper is sometimes called the learning coach. And that learning coach can provide very quick feedback for the child to make sure that they get it. It's still the job of the teacher to design and deliver the initial instruction, but that learning coach can reinforce and make sure that they're getting it. Responsiveness matters. The second is communication. All the tools that you use to communicate, we have so many tools. Text messaging and email, you have messaging system in every system that you use probably. You have whatever other tool you've put in place, like School Messenger or Parent Square or whatever those other tools that you're using to communicate with families. Communication is essential, and you need to train the families and the students and the parents in using those communication tools effectively. An expectation of how they would expect to receive the information and how they get help in exchange. So that communication is the second. And then the third is organization. Organization is essential with technology. Technology can provide a simple user interface for families to go and find what they're supposed to do that day. And you can create a whole bunch of confusing steps for families with multiple technology systems that generate, again, friction, which we want to rid our families of. So that begins the path of kind of talking about quality online instruction. Let me talk about a few good components of courses, because as each of us, if you're in a primary grade, you might be considering how Seesaw or Bitmoji dresses up your landing page for kids. At the intermediate grades, you might be thinking of tools like Schoology or Hypera or Canvas serve your kids. At the high school level, you may be considering learning management systems like Canvas, Blackboard, WebCT, BrainHoney, or Array Global's Fede, which you're going to hear a little bit about later today. Pearson also has a learning management system that provides for some of these systems. As you think about your course as it's designed for your kids, I want you to think about a meal. As we provide the student a meal, the thing that they have to exist at the table is air. They must have air. That air is connectivity to the internet. And it might be just through a phone so that you can make contact, or they can listen in to your Google Meet session or your Zoom session. But that phone is connectivity, or internet is their connectivity. That's just air that gets them to the table. And then at the table, the content is the meat and potatoes, or the protein and the rice, the things that at the table sustain the child. And that content is maybe 40, 50% of what's offered to the child through whatever systems that you're delivering. That's the content. So there's 4 areas that I want to talk about here, and content is it's the protein and the rice. The next pieces are the instruction, where the teacher interacts with the child. That's the vegetables and the fruit. And the fruit in this case is sometimes easy to take, but everybody's got to eat their vegetables. You know, kids don't always want to eat their vegetables. And the feedback they get, the assessment, the things that they get in this meal, they got to eat their vegetables as well as take the meal that sustains them. And then the family provides the beverages and the dairy, the things that complete the meal that sustain the child. We're in their home now. As an online learner and as an online teacher and as an online administrator, as well as a technology person, I recognize we have broke the barrier of the family and we are now into their home. So our job is to continue to sustain the child with a meal that's complete, that has the content and the instruction. And in the case of vegetables, assessment, that's the third. So assessment is they got to eat the vegetables. They got to get the feedback. Sometimes that's tough to take as a kid, feedback on how I'm doing, especially at the intermediate, middle, and high school grades, because they start to see themselves as other people might see them. So at the primary grades, they just want Sesame Street, Dora the Explorer. You know, they just want an edutainment. They just want to be connected. And then that teacher is tracking how they're doing in the systems over here. Excellent online instructors oftentimes are those two things, the edutainment over here and the data and the information about how the student's doing over here. And then the last piece of the four here, and then Ray, I want to engage in some Q&A if that's okay. I want to talk a little bit about accessibility for all kids. As you think about designing your systems, there are kids who are not going to be able to access the curriculum. In a smaller class size of 1 or 2, they might be able to be helped, but a special education child needs a lot of help to provide feedback to them at the level that they need it. Some families don't have internet or a home. And in that context, they need to be provided more tools, a wireless hotspot, a device at home. Again, that's the air hose. That's just the thing that gets them to the table so we can provide them the nutrition. That device connectivity, those are the two things that get them to the table so they can access the content, the instruction, the assessment, and this fourth one, the accessibility. Making sure that you universally design things so that there's color contrast on the page, that it's not some weird font that's tiny that you can't read, or that the web pages and tools you buy provide a voice tool to read it to them if they were blind or visually impaired. So accessibility is something you need to think of all throughout the design of the curriculum, instruction, and assessment. It is the basis for how we serve all kids, the last 20, 30% of students that, depending upon your area, need to be served. So I have a little bit more to talk about, but I think I can feed it into some of the questions and answers, Ray, as we come through this kind of question and answer period.
Great. That's a great introduction, Drew, to and you've given us several of the meal, the food that's in front of us and everything that's important. What would you say, Drew, are the elements to make up a really effective online course or online instruction? What are those elements? Because we know, and we've seen people each week, we've seen people write comments here saying, you know, they don't want to do online, the parents don't like it, students don't like it, teachers don't like it. But it is what it is, because that's where we are. So what are those elements that really make an effective online course or online instruction on the part of the teachers?
So we've all experienced technical support, and we called tech support, and you sit online and then you end up talking to someone, and then you might help talk to somebody else and then help to somebody else. Responsiveness wins in this new environment. We must be responsive to our families so that the feedback they get is very tight. They can't wait for a whole day or a whole 2 days, 48 hours, or a whole week. Gosh, learning would halt. It would cease to happen because of some technical issue. So there must be an attention to responsiveness and that speed of feedback. And that means that a teacher might need to respond in communication systems within minutes or hours or at least a day to support that entire family. So responsiveness is that first thing, and it's the most important. As we think about great online instruction, that content, and then the organization, and the communication. Those are just essential pieces. And as you look at as an online educator, I've been doing this for close to 20 years, designing, developing, and teaching online classes at all grade levels, from elementary to college. And it all comes down to responsiveness. How quickly can you get back, and how instantly can you communicate the teaching and learning process with the child? And you do that with a number of tools. Dr. Ray, we've seen hundreds, as we've done visits in the Middle East and around the country. We've seen hundreds of terrific curriculum, but they don't teach themselves. They need the teacher to deliver the nutrition. They need the teacher to fill out the social, emotional learning needs of the child and interpret for them what that content means to what they know and need to be able to do. So responsiveness, communication, and that organizational piece supported by the technology tools. Keep it simple. Just choose 2 or 3 tools. If it's Google Classroom and you have that for free, by golly, train the students on how to use effectively Google Classroom and that custom Meet link at the top. Train the parents and make sure that they understand. Train the teachers and show them how to connect with their students within that medium. Choose just 2 or 3 tools. When we start to get all of those other tools, that's when things break down, because they generate friction for the family to try to log into some new system or to get some new piece of software to work.
You know, you've hit on something. I just want to go a little bit further into my question, but you said something that I think is so important. How many of us, if we are corresponding with someone we know, either personally or professionally or whatever, we write an email, we put a message on Facebook, we write on WhatsApp or any of these others, and we don't hear from them. Think, what's wrong? What did I do? And especially in these times, I've heard what you said there, that we have to let them know that we're going to, and if we can't answer their question right now, we'll say, I'm in a conference or I'm at a meeting, I will be back to you in 2 hours or something, so that they feel this responsiveness that you've talked about.
Yeah, imagine, Ray, if you went to a coffee shop and waited for someone and they never showed up.
Yeah, yeah.
I reiterate what we said. It's very frustrating to not feel responded to or cared about. And kids don't have a filter of understanding how to wait for that. Adults, frankly, in a lot of cases, don't have the patience to wait. So we have to fill in that gap. As you said, Ray, last week, I think it was, we are the adults in the system. We are the ones who have to take responsibility of connecting the kids to the curriculum and the kids to the teachers. As educational leaders, we have to take this job seriously to simplify and train effectively. It is rocket science. It's really hard to make things simple, but we have to keep it simple for families. And that's really
Dr. Drew,
families.
Yeah, Dr. Drew, I really like that part. There was a question in the chat that said, how do we deal with it when families are not familiar with technology, if parents are not familiar with technology? And if we keep it simple, it's going to make it much, much easier on those families. Do you have any other ideas on how we can best connect with families who might not be very familiar with technology or might not be able to afford technology or internet?
Yeah, and it goes along those same lines of simplifying things. A phone call is still the most reliable analog technology we have. And if you can have a brief phone call with a family where you talk about a topic, whether it be government or communities or some concept in inquiry or science, it's really one word, inquiry or hypothesis, or whatever that word is, that's the thing that's going to be on the word wall, right? That topic is what you should lead with the child. How are you doing? And immediately into a content topic, so that you make the best use of a conversation with the child and the family listening. And I think we need to also think about classified staff, not just teachers, as teachers. We have to, as our superintendent put it this last week, we have to track every minute of instructional assistant time to utilize in this new space of connecting with families or helping with the processing or the data or the grading, so that the teacher can focus on the interaction with the child, that point of interaction, whether it be the 15-minute phone call, or as you're thinking in terms of technology, the simple use of maybe one or two tools. You really need a learning management system, an LMS, to be able to organize in a complex way the content, instruction, assessment, and accessibility. You really need a learning management system of some sort to bring that together. Google Docs and Google Classroom, those are good document management systems, but they're not a learning system that supports all of those interactions. So an LMS or something simple like that, or even Google Classroom if that's what you have to work with. And then you need some sort of a synchronous tool like Google Meet or Zoom where you can connect, or just a phone call. In both of those other tools I mentioned, they have a phone-in feature so kids can listen in to that content. And then I would put also, Dr. Jake, organization. There needs to be a schedule. And I think you shared with me this last week a Google Sheet where this principal had kind of laid out all the schedules and all the links for their administrative day to be able to drop in and check on the teaching and learning that's happening. Organization is really essential in this too. So as teachers and administrators, we are edutainers and we are data royalty. We've got to have great data skills, and not all teachers are both. Some teachers are better at the data, some teachers are better at the edutainment. So we have to specialize and help teachers pair up so that maybe one is better at the data and tracking side and maybe one is better at entertainment.
You came up with a word that's new to me, but I love it because I think I see what it means. Edutainers. It's a combination of educators and entertainers. And we as educators, whether we're in classroom or online, we have to understand, we have to keep these kids' interest. Little entertainment, and it can be productive entertainment, will really help.
And Dr. Ray, you've done that to me countless times over the hundreds of visits we've been on together. I draw upon your motivation as you kind of light the fire in, well, we light the fire for our kids and for our teachers. That motivating couple of moments where you're sharing some of the emotion, that's the magic sauce. That's the stuff that makes the nutrition for the kid. It's not just content. It's not just a system. It has to be a relational connection to the content. So you interpret it for me as a human being.
And Dr. Drew, I wanted to get on that just a little bit about making that relationship. There's a lot of questions about how to best engage primary age students from KG, kindergarten, all the way up to grade 3. And that seems to be one of the most biggest struggles I know in my schools that I run, and then also in a lot of the schools that we're hearing from in our chats and on this workshop, and then also just communication with people. How can we best get them? And I know you talked about simplicity and communication. Is there anything else, feedback that you have for these teachers and these administrators that are on?
So members of my family are elementary teachers, and I spent time in my first part of my career in intermediate and middle school classrooms. So it's dear to my heart that primary intermediate grades. As you think about organization of a kindergarten classroom, those of you that have had the opportunity to visit a kindergarten classroom, it is dark. It is visible how organized that environment is. There is routines to go to the bathroom. There's routines to get your book. There's routines to sharpen your pencil. Everything in that environment is trained. Students need training. And to take the time to attend to safe, respectful, and responsible characteristics in a physical school, it takes time of that welcome week to train them in those routines. So as a teacher, you're going to spend time in the first few weeks of school right now in training them. And it doesn't have to be high tech. You don't have to do some multimedia. It's just attending to, make sure you turn off your microphone so that everybody else can hear the other people that are talking. It's turn off your video if you're losing connection so that you get a better signal so you can hear what's going on. If you have a bad internet connection, choose to call in so that you can listen to what the teacher's saying without disruption. Some of the things that we need to train the students on, don't overlook those things, especially at the primary grades. At the primary grades also, you need to attend to training not just the student, because they may not be able to abstractly understand what you're talking to them about. You're training the learning coach. You need to think about how that family member, and it could be grandma or grandpa or an uncle or aunt, or in some cases, somebody that is being employed to serve as a learning coach. But that family has someone that's in charge of the student's learning. And that can take time, hours a day, for that learning coach to attend to. Again, their job is not to design and deliver the initial instruction. It is their job to check to see if the student understood it or not. So that's the differentiating feature. The teaching and the learning is delivered of the content, including tools and curriculum and things. It's the job of the learning coach to make sure that the child got it, that they understand what happened, or the knowledge and skills that they need to know. And then that they apply it in the practice that's going to happen in that structured space. There's a term that's called a study spot or a study place. A routine in a family household is what I would call a thinking space. Kids love thinking spaces. They don't like study spots, but they like thinking spaces. So as you train your families, talk to them about finding a thinking space. And in that thinking space, you have pens and paper, the materials you would have in your desk at school. And within reach, you have all of the things that they need to be able to really focus and think. And that thinking space is something you need to train your parents and those learning coaches on. So especially at those primary grades. And then the instruction takes, Dr. Jake, a different art form. In a classroom, you can afford to not be effective for a few minutes and have some downtime. But when you design for online instruction, you are designing 5 to 15 minutes of highly engaging time. So you, as a teacher, are going to spend an hour for 15 minutes. So the preparation time for that 15 minutes needs to be quiet time for the teacher, so that 15 minutes is you're delivering Dora the Explorer. You know, episodes of Dora the Explorer and other cartoons are vetted with hundreds of children, and only a fraction, sometimes 15 or 20% of the episodes ever make it to the airwaves. And the reason for that is because they're looking for very characteristics of engagement where the family, or in this case, the child they're watching, is engaging with the content. As a teacher, my craft has never been more scrutinized, because now the family is watching it and the child is watching it. Make those 15 minutes good.
You, when you're talking about, because there was another question that came across about the primary, the elementary, the kindergarten kids, and they won't sit at a computer. So I think what you're saying, Drew, is that these activities, yeah, they might not be sitting at a computer for the whole instruction. They might be doing something while this lesson is going on. Ideas?
Yeah, the memories of my own daughter as a second grade online student come to mind there, Ray. And we had materials and for, I think it was erosion, something to do with erosion. And she was so distracted by the things that were going on with the dirt and rocks up to the right that she was not listening to the teacher. Again, organization, that 15 minutes of delivery where there's very explicit steps, and then leave it on the screen for the instruction. Then if you've got some great tools, maybe you put them in a breakout room if you have those tools. But you provide them the space to ask questions and go do an activity, and don't expect 50% of them to come back. So you need to make sure that 5 or 10, 15 minutes is great introductory activity, and then look forward to tomorrow to connecting, and then give them space and time to go do that activity. You know, Dr. Ray, as you said it, there's actually there's healthy screen time requirements for children, and a lot of families are very concerned about kids spending more than a certain amount of time in front of a screen. And so we need to attend to that. Most of the time they're going to be spending learning, they're not going to be in front of a screen. So we need to plan for the activities at the primary grade where they're either doing things offline or they're engaged in an activity where they're not interacting with the class. So it might just be a portion of the day where you're designing face-to-face time with activities planned and message provided to the learning coach to assure that they happen offline.
Dr. Drew, you have hit it again and again and again about organization. That is so important. I remember that our very first workshop that we did in July, one of the ladies said that when she has online instruction, she expects her students to be at their desks and be lying on their bed, relaxing and so forth, attentive to what is going on and prepared. So I'm hearing that also. Excuse me, Dr. Jake, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. What I was just going to say, Dr. Drew, is in my school district, I have teachers in the lower grades that will record themselves because these little kids like to see things repetitively. Like they'll watch Dora the Explorer 5 times the same episode over and over again in one day. They'll watch Frozen 10 times in one day. And when I see some of these great teachers do these 15-minute amazing lessons, these students go in and watch those over and over and over again. And that part I thought was amazing. These kids were getting some great instruction because of that.
There's tools such as Edpuzzle, or there's some YouTube extensions that do it as well. Canvas Studio does it as well. That checks for understanding through a video and asks for some sort of prompting question, a true false question answer, where the student has to do something in order to advance the video. Great content checks for understanding. And that stuff is magic because it's going to some extent, teach itself. As I've mentioned before, it doesn't teach itself, but it does a better job of checking for understanding along the way and prompting the child. So as we think about recording those, why in an online school would you not record every minute of instruction? I would just put the question out there. I don't understand why you wouldn't record every minute. It's great for families. It's great for students. And frankly, it's great for an administrator to be able to go back and check. It's great for a teacher to go back and reflect. So with the technology that we have in front of us as a teacher, I want every minute of instruction recorded so my kids can go back. Now, they're not going to go back and watch 45 minutes of lecture about hypothesis and how it applies to inquiry science experiments, but they will be able to go back and watch the 5-minute summary. So one of the strategies I've suggested teachers do is go ahead and teach the 45-minute lesson where the students are engaging and asking questions, and then record a 5-minute summary at the end that you actually post. That provides a shortened clip that most kids would watch, frankly. 45 minutes, not so much, but 5-minute clip. I think a lot of kids would engage with just that 5-minute clip. And that's the one that you post to the other social media platforms so that more kids would watch. And then a kid on a daily basis, if they're getting a dose of 5 minutes a day in each class, that seems to be more manageable on bandwidth, depending upon their the internet connectivity that they have. And so that's another suggestion in terms of low bandwidth options as well. Give them a summary, 5-minute summary of the lesson for the day, because most teachers can summarize what you said in 30, 45 minutes in about 5.
Well, Dr. Drew, you talked a little bit about assessing students electronically and ensuring that they're getting the content that they need. Do you have any other ways that we can control assessments and be able to assess student learning? I know you mentioned a few different tools. If you want to restate those, some people wanted you to restate those again.
I mentioned Edpuzzle it's just a great online tool, but there's some Canvas Studio comes with Canvas, another learning management system. I know Pearson and others have videos where when you're watching the video, there's a chance where you get to pause the video now for this, or it actually pauses it for you and you have to answer a question. Great curriculum will do that. So as we look for good curriculum, I think the education publishers are putting out more and more things that are really well designed, and then some tools will continue to improve out there. Just when you design a recording, maybe it's that 5-minute video you record at the end, it's a summary. Pause the question and say, pause the video now to take 25 seconds and write down a few things that you want it to take from today's lesson. I don't know, or something like that. So you can do all of those things that are high tech. You can usually do them low tech. So I would say don't chase the shiny thing. think about the quality of the content, instruction, and assessment and accessibility as you design it. Most of the time, you can do things on your own with very low technology tools to provide great instruction. And as far as assessment goes, you know, another one that's pretty popular now is, I think it's Go Formative, I think is the one that's just kind of pretty recently kind of hit. But Kahoot is another one. It's a fantastic little assessment tool for quizzes to get kind of kids riled up. But it does, Kahoot does some things with timing that frustrate the kids that are the deep processors. And so if you want a tool that affords to get rid of that time factor to make it rushed, Quizzes is with 2 Z's is another tool just like Kahoot, but it eliminates some of the timing aspect of the competitive side that lets kids just answer the question when they come. Another one would be Socratic. It's a great tool to provide sentence or short answer description as a part of a lesson, and kids get to respond back. But you know, you can use Google Forms to do the same thing. Google Forms is a great tool to collect an exit ticket at the end of the lesson to make sure that the kid got what you were intending to instruct. There's some tools. Again, keep it simple though. If you're going to choose one of these tools, use that tool, train them on it, practice on it, work together, establish expectations and protocols with it, and then use it.
So, Dr. Drew, are there other things when it comes to course design and, when it comes to course design and layout, are there other things that would help?
Yeah, I think as we kind of mentioned, content, instruction, accessibility, and assessment, those are the common pieces. Richard Elmore talks about how you impact teachers, content, and the instruction, and how that instruction, I'm probably getting one of those wrong, but the instructional core, the teacher, the student, and the content, that's it. Those 3 things, if you impact the kid, it impacts the teacher and it impacts the content. If you change the curriculum, it impacts the teacher and it impacts the student. And if you impact the teacher, you train the teacher, you provide professional development for the teacher, it also impacts the content or the curriculum and the student. So those 3 things are really critical. And if you as a school leader or as a teacher are going to develop yourself, and maybe you get out in front, recognize that those students and the families are still catching up with you on that new tool. Let's say you used to choose Socratic or Kahoot. You need, once you learn that tool, you've got to go back and make sure that they learn that with you and they understand how to behave in that environment with that new tool. And recognize that the content is also impacted by that, because there are whole groups that use Kahoot for learning, and it's essentially a way to use assessment up front to check for understanding, and then you use more questions. You stagger it. You have Kahoot question 1 that says some framework like, how do you know about this? And then the second one that says, what are the common elements of it? So it's like you're using a quiz question to teach, and then 1 to assess, and then 1 to teach, and then 1 to assess. That's an interesting, very innovative way of using Kahoot that maybe we wouldn't have thought of before. So I think when you think about the content, instruction, assessment, we as teachers are the magic piece that bring the environment together. Keep it simple, choose a few tools, and then focus on the quality curriculum and the instruction that's happening, and then the assessments and to check for understanding, make sure the kids are getting it, and then make those social emotional connections with kids with 1 word or 2 words to help them understand that new concept each week. That rhythm of 1 week at a time is kind of magical. You know, on Monday you introduce something, Tuesday you discuss, Wednesday assignment, Thursday reflect, Friday project. That weekly schedule of Saturday, I guess, in different parts of the world. But the different, that rhythm of a weekly basis creates some rhythm in an online class that is really important too.
Yeah, probably wouldn't be a bad idea for teachers, to have friend teachers, buddy teachers, and maybe present your lesson to your friend your teacher friend and ask for comments. Did this, did you feel involved in what, are there things that I could do to make this more interesting? It's just something that I think we've used before, and it's appropriate not only in in-class instruction, but in online instruction. Very effective because it's a whole different world when we're looking. Dr. Drew, you've mentioned LMS several times, and we're really pleased to have with us again today George Maklavadze. George is working with Array Global as one of our coordinators. He's responsible for most of Eastern Europe and brings a lot of expertise to us. FADE has developed an LMS system which we introduced a bit last week, and we've had several of you say, I'd like to know more about it, and I think it fits in very well, Dr. Drew, with what you've been talking about. So we've asked George if he would just spend a little bit of time explaining a little bit more. And by the way, so that you don't have to ask, he's already sent the contact information to Dr. Jake. So at the end of this presentation, we can send it all to you. So George, it's great to have you with us, and tell us a bit more about the LMS.
Thank you, Dr. Ray. Thank you, Dr. Jacob. Dr. Drew, first of all, I would like to say that I really enjoyed today listening your stories about the LMS and online learning, because I think you spent in online education way more than I spent. I have only 10 years experience, you have 20 years experience. And it's very important, as you mentioned, to educate. It's very important to educate all stakeholders, parents, students, teachers, school administrators, to correctly understand what is LMS, to correctly understand what is blended learning, and correctly understand what the online learning in general means. So today, I will be sharing this screen again, and mainly I will be directing to you, Dr. Drew, because every single point you brought today to the conversation, our technical team tried for the last 10 years to integrate in our LMS, learning management system. And first of all, what I would like to start, what you mentioned is exactly true. It's a big difference between content management system and the learning management system, right? So what we did, we originally developed the whole concept ecosystem where students, teachers, parents, and school administrators can meet each other. And it's not only content management, it's already content management and learning management system. So if you see on the left-hand side, and I will from your conversation several main points. Communication, you mentioned, this is very important, right? And maybe we will ask Jacob to don't paint on the screen.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that's happening, George. I'm sorry.
Somebody is playing on the mobile phone. My students did sometime this. They just have to do it themselves. Anyway, we'll keep going. So, Dr. Drew, on the left-hand side, we integrated in our LMS all the communication tools between parents, school administration, and the students and teachers. There is messages, they can send messages to each other, and there's announcements, right, where the school administration can send information to the stakeholders. Also, you mentioned very important to track the usage of the LMS, right? So we here developing the record immediately how much exactly time spent each student on each curriculum. Also, parents and teachers or school administration will be available to monitor the calendar. And the student went on the online and what they have done particular day, it will be all recorded on this stuff. If we go to the content itself, the good thing is that Array Global already accredited the whole content. We have K-12 content from kindergarten to grade 12. And the difference, again, to the Google Classroom and our content is that in our case, we already present to our teachers developed content. And not only content, it's tests, it's quizzes, it's activities. Every single course where we start from course introduction and then we go to the course pretest. Originally, teachers can use this LMS during the classes in person at the blended learning tool, or they can use this LMS for the distance learning. As well, teachers can use this LMS as an additional content to their existing or as a main content. So there will be different use, and we will be running. Hello?
George, just go ahead and share your screen one more time.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
Do that. Thank you. So what we also will be doing when the Dr. Jacob announced, and somebody still loves to paint. So what we will be doing during the Olympiad worldwide, the Olympiads will be very much based on these multi-choice questions, which will be provided to the students. During the lessons, on the left-hand side, I would like to show you that we developed a whole academic program on the left-hand side. So the school teachers and the students, they can monitor whole program. They can recover the credit. They go to the lesson which they missed few days ago, few weeks ago, and they can recover it. Also, each lesson we design the lesson and the lesson posters. So students, as you mentioned, having the different activities as they can do self-assessment. And Dr. Ray mentioned about the grading. The students, very important to have opportunity for the self-assessment to check themselves how good they are in the lesson so they can get to the teachers. So this is a way we design our LMS. Also, we integrated a lot of tools and features so students can, write and paint and calculate. So originally, one other thing, what you mentioned, we're talking for the international student. And
Introduction. Look at the animation. How many heart shapes are there?
So you also mentioned during your speech that sometimes students maybe love to prefer to listen the text instead of reading themselves. So all this content is developed, and I would like to say to our teachers, school administrators, that you please send me any questions which you think will be reasonable for you to understand why we have to integrate in your learning process our LMS. And again, quizzes and all kind of tests already integrated. And you mentioned that, let me turn it off and turn it again. And you also mentioned, Dr. that very important to be easy to manage, user-friendly LMS. So we already, during the 10-year, hearing for our stakeholders, students and teachers and parents, it's very easy to manage. And one other thing, what I would like to say, show the school administrators, reporting. As you mentioned, there is a big difference between content management and the reporting system. Our system creates 28 real-time reports constantly, 24 hours. So parents can check. Let me go as an administrator to the system. Here, school administrator. And school administrator will have different login and password, right? So they can go and see how many students attending, what are they success stories. They can pull up information, whatever they want. They can pull up any report. They can pull up the calendar. They can pull up do they want to see by subject? Do they want to by grades? So this is all developed. So this is a very short Dr. Ray presentation, and we go to our website, what we did, and this website will be given to our participants through the email. We describe whole presentation, what exactly features we have on the website, and at the end, we also uploaded the brochure. So our participants can go to website and see all information there. So Dr. Ru, if you have any questions, please, I will be happy to answer you, or Dr. Ray or Dr. Jacob.
Great, thank you, George. This, I'm excited about what you're doing. We've looked at this, those of us who work with you, we've looked at this, and I just share with you at this time, this really is, it's two places that I want us to remember. Number one, for those teachers or schools that are not really comfortable with online instruction, And this is a way to implement that and to make it more realistic. And the other reason why I think this is good is because the content has been tested. I was with George and several of his developers a year ago in Lausanne, Switzerland, and these people are well educated in education and educational subjects, and they really thought through very carefully. So I wanted you to see this again today. Again, Dr. Jake will put on the response to today, the direct contact. Dr. Drew, do you have any concluding thoughts for us, that words of wisdom, let's call them, something that will help us put this all in perspective?
I didn't mean to roll my eyes there, Ray, but I don't have awesome quotes from Mark Twain to share. I mean, you do such a great job of concluding these meetings with like some final word, but I'd rather take a second to be authentic here. And I think it's really important to acknowledge what just happened. When you use a technology and something happens that you're unfamiliar with, or something happens that's surprising. In this case, the settings for security in Zoom were not set in such a way where all participants could not draw on what was being shared. And we responded with just keeping moving forward, because we were focused on the 99% of the people on the call, which in your classroom, the 99% of your kids that are trying to engage and learn something. And then the 1% or the one person that that decided to try to be disruptive. And that happens in a classroom. And so I think
5 years ago.
we have to acknowledge that happens in online school. And sometimes you have the tools to be able to mute their microphone, or put them in the weight room in a Google Meet session like this, or to disable their pen. And sometimes you might not have those powerful tools to do those things. It's kind of like, I think of a bat belt, like a superhero. As a teacher, you build out all of these tools, like a check for understanding and a would you rather game, or a heads up 7-up game, or something. You build all these tools where you use to motivate kids to be learners, active participants, and engage in your classroom. Teachers are just building out their tool set for these things, and sometimes they need additional help. So today you saw a great example where there's 2 or 3 people. In this case, you'd be a teacher and a classified staff maybe, and the classified staff would be helping manage and make sure that the kids unmuted when they were going to talk, or muted when they weren't supposed to talk, or turned off their camera if there was somebody walking behind them, being disruptive. So that classified staff can be a help to you, a support to you, or a co-teacher, as Dr. Ray said. So you saw that model today, and I hope that what we did with your hands and with the active engagement of content that was well prepared, and a lot of thinking that went into that, the preparation that you spend to put in it, I think we modeled all the things that you're going to expect out of a lesson with your kids. And I think I want to take the time that we had there to summarize the authentic experience that we had today, where you use a tool, you try to get the settings, the right configuration you can, and then you roll with it, and you just keep moving forward. And the kids want to learn, and you want to teach, and there's content to be picked up, and the skills and knowledge, and it's going to happen. I mean, if kids just were engaging with the world, they would be learning, right? We are the partners with them to accelerate the process of learning, so that we identify the things they might need to know and be able to do for life. So there you go. There's the concluding thoughts without the famous
And
quote.
Dr. Ray, can I ask Drew one parting question that might be kind of a good conclusion for him? One question that we've asked a lot of our presenters is how is this COVID-19 pandemic going to affect education in the future? Specifically, how is it going to affect technology use in the future? Yeah, and I just can see by your face, your remark. How is it really going to change? I think it's going to drastically change a lot of what we do.
Oh, what an opportunity. And I would use this chance, Dr. Jake, to say that we need more of these types of sessions. And as we've kind of talked about, of finding ways to support one another, and different elements of technology. Let's specifically hone in on one area, content or learning management systems or strategies in online learning, or, you know, a simple tip of just taking attendance in a chat box, asking everybody to answer, how are you doing today on a scale of 1 to 5? Please put it in chat. And then you just copy and paste that. That's your attendance for the day. Ways to engage kids in learning maybe is a little bit different in this new medium. So I would answer it with a question. I would say, what else do we need to develop and support each other?
Great. George, do you have any concluding thoughts?
Honestly, I would love to wish all our participants nice and smooth academic year. And whatever LMS or the online platform they will be using, they have to exactly what Drew said, to make it smooth, nice, and easy to understand and help kids to achieve their outcomes. Thank you.
Good. Dr. Jake, concluding thoughts.
You know, I'm just really impressed with the educators that we've been in contact with. And I know that as you become flexible and you get creative, you're going to be able to provide a quality education. And I think that's what it's really going to come down to, is being creative and working hard. And if we can do those two things, we're going to be able to find success with our students and help our schools continue to improve. But at the very end of this, we're going to look back and we're going to be grateful that we went through a struggle like this, like we usually do when we go through a struggle, because we're going to learn so much about this whole process. So thank you.
Good. Let me make a couple of announcements. First of all, next Saturday, the 29th of August, we will have the last one for August. And we're pleased that we'll have Mr. John Barlow and Mr. Danny Eichelberger. They've probably been in some of your schools. John oversees all charter schools in his area, and Danny is a principal of a very large school. And they're going to try to wrap all of these things together into a topic that will be hopefully pulling it all together. And what we've chosen as a topic is how to maintain a positive school culture during times of crisis. Think about that. How to maintain a positive school culture during times of crisis. And then a couple of announcements. One I'm really excited to present. We have had so many outstanding comments from all of you who have attended our workshops that you've said, could we have more? Could we have more? Could we have more? So Dr. Jake and I have been working on a plan, and we're announcing it for the first time today. We are announcing, first of all, that we're going to try to do one of these every month, the month of September, October, November, and December. We're going to give that a trial. And because Dr. Jake and I have worked together so much, we will be handling the first one. Dr. Jake and myself will be giving a presentation that we gave to the Lebanese Ministry of Education last month, and the whole concept is quality education equals quality schools, and how accreditation helps you get there. And so I know that we've had some people from the Lebanese ministry with us today. We're glad to have you with us again, and we'll be presenting that on September 19th. So we'll be sending out registration information to you. And the other thing we would like to send out to you in a questionnaire is we've announced more than once that we will have our annual conference in Lausanne, Switzerland. That beautiful scene that you see behind George is not a picture. That's the real thing. And we would kind of like to know, we have a limited number of spaces because of the lodging. We'd kind of like to know if you would respond to Dr. Jake's question, how many people do you think might be coming? It's not a guarantee. How many people might be coming? The dates are March 3rd through 6th of 2021. We're planning an excellent program. Plus, you'll have some opportunity to see the beautiful sights of Switzerland. I'll never, ever forget the night we spent on Lake Geneva there and looking out across there as these boats were going over there, the Swiss Alps. It's just beautiful. And I remind us too of something that Maya Angelou said once. She said, and I think as educators, we really need to think about this. She said, I've learned that people forget what you say. They might forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And we work together because we feel good about working with each other. And then the beautiful poem that was written by Kevin Huff, who said, when God created teachers, he gave us special friends. He helps us to help us understand his world and truly comprehend the beauty and the wonder of everything we see and become a better person with each discovery. When God created teachers, he gave us special guides to show us ways in which to grow so we can all decide how to live and how to do what's right instead of wrong. Lead us so that we can lead and learn how to be strong. Why God created teachers? In his wisdom and his grace was to help us learn to make our world a better, wiser place. Bless you all. Thank you for attending today. And we'll be responding to any questions we haven't addressed in our conversation today. And bless you all. Thank you so much for attending. Hope to see you next Saturday, same time, same place, and our last presentation of this month. Thank you.